Hey, Luis.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So you're over in Italy?
Yeah,
Nice, man. Born and raised over there?
yeah, in the south of Italy. What about you?
I'm in the United States, in Ohio, so Midwest. So not as beautiful as the southern Italy.
Yeah, it's honestly it's hard to beat.
That's awesome, man. So basically, like we were talking about, the podcast, the goal around it is to help bridge that gap between employers and employees on AI and their knowledge base because there's a big misconception that AI is taking everybody's job when in reality, it's going to be people learning how to use AI to enhance their roles. And same for business owners, like their business is going to change with the use of AI. Bridging that knowledge gap is the intention behind the podcast here. So I know you seem to be crushing it on social media right now.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that you'll have some good takes and some good things to talk about.
I agree with the concept behind the podcast. Humans can't be replaced because humans themselves build AI. It's just how powerful a human powered by AI, like plus AI, can actually perform their job. I agree with that. And yeah, thank you for the compliments. I think like if I can give my insights, my take on anything, I'll be happy to do that.
Awesome, man. How'd you end up getting into the AI space? Like, how did you end up where you are right now?
Well, I started with AI a bit earlier than when the hype actually started. It was late 2022. I was still running my NFT company. My main work experience and entrepreneurial journey has been in crypto. But I've been getting into AI, specifically with some AI tools that were entirely GPT and GPT wrappers. In late 2022, I started slowly learning what made those systems possible so that I knew how to potentially integrate them in my business. And then from there, it was just a love story. The more I learned, the more I wanted to do something with it.
So you started off in the crypto space. I also started off in the crypto space back in like 2016. And I started to learn about AI around 2022, 2023. But what was it for you, like going from NFTs, crypto, to getting into AI? Did you just see a bigger opportunity there? It was more functional. What was the thought process behind that?
Well, actually, a couple of years went by since the very first moment I stumbled upon AI. That's because I implemented a tiny bit of AI into my business, not to an extent where it was substantially making a difference, but just slightly helping me, let's say, in drafting proposal to clients, just using ChatGPT. That was the main thing. Back then, the biggest thing you could do to personalize AI usage was prompts. So I learned prompt engineering, and that's essentially everything I did. But I made the actual shift a few months ago. I was actually returning to crypto after a 1 year experience working with creators, so in the content industry outside of crypto. After this experience, I came back to crypto specifically into meme coins. I built a paid community from zero to $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue in 2 months, but I wasn't really liking it. Meme coins are very subject to market change. So 1 month could be good, the other one maybe completely the opposite, and it's not entirely due to me or the community. Because of that, I told myself, yo, Dom, you like content, you like AI. Why don't you do for the first time both of them for content and business together? And so I started this journey. Today is day 52 of this series that I called Building an AI Company in Public. I actually made the change because you're right. I saw a bigger opportunity and in general something that I felt more passionable towards. So yeah.
No, that makes complete sense. I feel the same way because I've done a lot in the space for crypto as well. I've had communities and hosted many workshops explaining some of the cryptos to people, having 10, 15 people on a call. But the issue with the crypto space is that there's too many pump and dumps, too many get rich quick schemes. And yeah, you can make a lot of money in crypto fast. It's very true. But it also kind of dilutes the image and makes it less professional, less reputable. If you say, "Oh, I have a crypto business," it seems like you're not as respected as much. But then something like AI comes around and you can use it to fix some of your issues, help you out in your business. And you can see, okay, wow, this is actually something that can be implemented in day to day life. Crypto, not necessarily. It's a little more niche, it's difficult.
Exactly. That's the key word here. I think crypto goes very vertical as well. AI is very horizontal in terms of the scalability of it. I recently watched some clips from Sam Altman where he said that he thinks AI generalists will win over niche specific use cases for AI. He was surprised by the fact that most people are still approaching the business side of AI as one thing only, because that one thing only gets completely erased and absorbed by when GPT-5 comes out. That's what he said. And so anything that is niche specific, ultra personalized, ironically enough, won't last long because, again, AI will become more powerful. But if you know all about AI and how to implement it into all sorts of business, you definitely have an advantage. Whereas crypto isn't like that. One of the aspects I love the most about crypto is the whole premise of it. The fact that money, which means technically power, comes back to the people. You own your data, you own your finances. But that is a very fixed perimeter under which it's useful. It's hard to find clients organically. Usually, clients come in only when the market is up. You're not fully responsible for your business if it's a crypto business, as you said.
Yep, I completely agree, man. And I know you had said that when you started out using AI, it was mostly ChatGPT, learning how to do some prompt engineering. Before discovering ChatGPT and getting in the space, what was your technical background? Did you have any technical background? Do you know how to code? Do you know how to use a lot of the more complicated tools in the space?
So I am just turned 23 a few days ago. I had a little bit of technical knowledge, but my last 2 years of high school were during COVID. So last 2 years of high school in Italy are the most technical ones, where you do most practical builds. But unfortunately, we couldn't do that because we couldn't go into our lab at school because we were at home. So I lost a lot of the robotics, the machine learning side of things because we just couldn't do it. It was a highly theoretical rather than practical. So I started to lose interest at the beginning of year four, which made me shift towards internet money. So branding, marketing, and online businesses. That was still helpful for me because I was able to spot technical opportunities in a uh, fashionable, like analyzing trends at the same time. That's how I knew I would have done NFTs and I knew what gaps I was filling because I also knew the technical potential of NFTs. I started doing the same with AI as well. I knew where it was going, so I slowly started learning it, but nothing too technical.
Yeah, no, that's encouraging in and of itself because a lot of people are intimidated by AI, thinking they need to have a technical background. And I will say, when I was getting into the space, it was a lot more technical than it is now. Now it seems almost like a kid can learn how to create some of these automations, how to do prompting. The barrier to entry is definitely lowered. And when you were starting to get into ChatGPT and learning how to prompt engineer, what would you say were some big things that you've learned along the way that would help shorten somebody else's journey to be more proficient and implement using chat gpt in their day-to-day life, whether it be somebody who's working for a company or a business owner?
People using ChatGPT and dealing with prompts in general are ultimately the current most important thing. Even if you build complex automation using NA10, there's system prompts, user prompts. So you have to play around with what you ask the LLM. And the result you get from LLMs is only as good as the input. What I learned is you have to clearly assume that ChatGPT is dumb. You can't pretend it understands the context of what you're asking. You have to literally tell every single detail as much as possible. Then the systems inside of ChatGPT itself advanced quite a lot, where you can now have custom GPTs, you can have projects. It got easier to train your ChatGPT to perform better. The biggest takeaway, if you're just getting started, should be to clearly define the scope of the result you want. You do that through clarifying who you are, who you want the current chat to behave as, and defining what you don't want and the structure of the output you want. Even better, the single thing that probably gave me the best results when I was getting started were pre-made examples. So I gave an example of the output I wanted if I could find one. And that made my life much easier when dealing with the prompts.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But how would you use, like, when would you use a custom GPT in your business as opposed to a project?
So a custom GPT generally allows more information to be stored. Projects instead only allow you to store, I think, 20 files inside of the memory. So me and my technical partner for AI automations found this problem because we were building an agent. The ultimate goal was to build an agent, but we will the concept first through ChatGPT. So it was something that could build agents for us using LLM to input a natural language description, so in English, in plain English, and receive a JSON that is the output in the form of an agent. When we started doing this with some examples we built through a project, GPT project, we found that issue of like 20 files only. It still worked quite good. So that was the first validation that the concept actually worked. But then we took it to the next step, which was through custom GPTs. You can customize again a bit more. So you can add more files, more context. You can play around with the system prompt a bit more in depth and custom like train it a bit better. So yeah, this is the main difference, I would say.
Gotcha. And so I know you are building your business in public. You're on day 52 right now. It takes a lot of courage to begin with because business isn't guaranteed. I'm not wishing this upon you, but you could fail in public, you could succeed in public. So it does take a lot of courage. What problems are you trying to solve right now in the AI space, helping out business owners?
So I went all in on being an AI generalist, as I said. I assumed Sam Altman knows better than me, better than any like guru that unfortunately, just like any niche on the internet, there's a lot of gurus. So you hear a lot of use AI for this thing only or that thing only, and you'll become a millionaire. But in reality, I truly believe that you have to be more of a generalist. As opposed to my previous business experience, for the first time in history, you can technically be under different circumstances at the same time. You can build different things at the same time. Where the number one generic but very true business tip is to focus on one thing only, build one thing at a time. Right now, the more AI grows, the more this is invalid anymore, essentially. So I do think that there's a few opportunities. Right now, the main ones that I'm covering are AI automations and specifically agents.
Mm-hmm.
So implementing agents into other people's businesses. And also vibe coding is very strong. You mentioned it earlier. A kid right now can type something and get an app as a result. So there's still a big gap between people that approach vibe coding for the first time and have pretty extensive knowledge on how to do a prompt, but they're lacking the backend frameworks, like the rules for the tool they're using, like cursor rules, windsurf rules, or they're lacking the tech stack. They don't even know how to approach a tech stack or how to make database schemas and all those technical things that require just a little bit of knowledge. And then you can truly do vibe coding and have something that is secure, that you can deploy with no issues. Just like 1 year ago, we didn't think AI could do videos with great quality. Just yesterday, Google announced VO3 and Flow, and now you can create Hollywood level clips with prompts. The same is going to happen with engineering. Right now, you can create pretty complex apps, but you have this problem with errors and AI hallucinating over errors and not being able to read the full code because it runs out of context window. This won't be true anymore in like even 3, 4 months, let alone 1 year. That's why right now you do have to position yourself as a bridge between vibe coding and a bit of technical knowledge so that you can
Mm-hmm.
potentially build that tool that will be the next cursor or the next windsurf. So I'm doing that and building my personal brand plus community. So I have the very traditional setup. I have my content funneling into a newsletter, into a private closed community. and then activating the members in there. This is what I'm currently working on.
Okay. I know you said that you're also doing a lot of things with AI agents and automations, and there is some technical skills needed in that realm, but it's not super technical for those who want to try to do this themselves, as opposed to hiring out an agent or training their team on how to do that. Maybe they're not technical at all because a lot of business owners are older. They're maybe in their 50s. How would you recommend they begin to learn how to create these automations? Like, what automations do you think would be best for most business owners to begin implementing into their systems?
So for complete beginners to automations and non-technical people, I highly suggest make.com or Zapier because they are very visual and they have the most integrations. There's literally almost no cases in which you have to create custom code. And what I would start with is recording all your tasks you do, even if it's like replying to an email or opening a specific window and getting some inputs or whatever the monotonous actions are, track them into steps as if you're making an SOP. Once that's done, either draw a flowchart to make sure in your mind everything plays out clearly, and then put that into Zapier or Make. It would start with a trigger, then you have the different events, you can have if, thens, you can have routers, there's multiple conditional logic you can implement with no code. That's what I suggest starting with. Zapier and Make have agents you can build, but they're not as advanced as what you can do in NA10. NA10 is the current most advanced no-code agent builder. It uses essentially code on the back end, but it's still no to low code on the front end. So same logic, you have nodes, you have triggers, but you will find yourself requiring some HTTP requests, some API calls, some custom code more often. And the more the platform grows, the less this will be the case. But for now, that's how it is. The beauty of NA10 is that you can self-host it. You don't have to pay expensive plans with Make or Zapier and pay for usage on top of it. You can self-host it, and that's a bit more advanced if you're just getting started. Some amazing tools like Heroku, like render.com, Google Cloud Service itself. There's a few platforms that you can easily host NA10 on. With just a few clicks, you have your whole environment set up and you can start building. If you want to take it a step further in terms of how cheap it can get and how you can customize it, you can go the local way. That's more complicated because you have to do tunneling, play around with the terminal a little bit, open up some ports. So that's a bit more difficult. But yeah, NA10 is where you can build the most advanced agents.
I completely agree. I use NAN almost every day. I prefer it over Make or any other automation platform. What would you say? Let's just your basic business owner, basic employee, and a simple business. What would you say would be like outside of learning to prompt on ChatGPT and maybe automating, making some of your emails easier? What would you say is a good first automation that most businesses can learn how to create and then learn how to implement into their own business?
I think the most time consuming task that happens inside almost every business is the low level aspect of managing it. It varies from business to business, but there's a lot of business that maybe are a lot more communication based. Let's think about like coaches, consultants. They do a lot of back and forth, either internally if they already have a team, or if they're solo and they run their own conversations and deals and all of that. Conversation are a big part of it. And I say this also because in my previous business, the one where I work with content creators, it's a business model called Growth Operating. So we partnered with the creators that were selling a course or a community so that they kept working on that and we instead could run their whole sales ecosystem, optimizing their churn and increasing their metrics. One thing that helped us a lot, even more than humans, because we actually tested it. We tested two DM setters whose goal was to take a conversation and qualify that lead and book that lead into a call to be passed on a closer. We tested it with humans, and humans performed 20 to 30% worse than an AI agent. we implemented an AI agent and it performed better because it doesn't forget things. We made it so that every chat that was used to train the agent itself. And also, it's available, of course, 24/7. It doesn't get tired. And it understands uh, something that humans sometimes do not understand because they get caught up by emotions. And sales is an industry, a part of a business where you have to leave your emotion outside of the scope. AI doesn't have emotion, so it followed the rules strictly. And so we found that even though some leads were seemingly qualified, they didn't pass the final test that our AI agent used because maybe the lead was trying to trick the closer to get something for free or just waste some time. So I would say automating your conversation is a good thing if you are an online business that is dealing with a lot of automations. And this applies also to emails. I built a few days ago an email agent that is now my personal assistant for emails. Every emails that comes in understands its context, if it's a opportunity or if it's just a promo email. It also uses Gmail labels to help understand that better. And then it drafts a response, and I get notified when a new response is drafted. I don't send it automatically because I still want to be in the loop in that case. But that's another thing that you can definitely start with all the way to the more complex stuff. I was talking to an automotive guy that works with the car dealerships and wanted to build an agent that was the core of his business. What they do is take photo shoots of cars and then write descriptions to be listed on marketplaces. And so if they make a mistake, if they forget a detail, they can get sued. So it was a very critical AI agent that they wanted to be built. In that case, you maybe want to go for professionals, like what this guy did with us. But if you are building your own agents alone, you can start with something that AI tends to understand better, which is either a set of instructions. So you already have an SOP that you have a virtual assistant perform. You can literally replicate that as an agent or as an automation, or something that involves communication. I would say you can start from that.
100%. And I will say, if you're a business owner and you don't have SOPs, you can easily make your own SOPs just by prompting ChatGPT what your business is, what your roles are, and it can come up with that for you and then even walk you through how to set up the automation. And if you're using NAN, you can go as far as asking it to create a downloadable file of the workflow that you can then import into NAN. Now, when you were talking about adding in the agent to do some DMs to get the closers more qualified leads, that's one thing somebody could do, especially if they're an online business. When one may hear that, that could replace a role of mine. How do you think that, like, for instance, what you're describing is the traditional setter closer role in the sales world? So, how would you say the setter's role would almost change or evolve? Because it's not as if there still won't be a human on the other side of the setting agent. The role's just going to change. So, what do you think about how that role will evolve as opposed to necessarily replacing them?
Well, if I'm a setter or a sales closer, I want to embrace AI as fast as possible so that I can build the person that builds those agents with my knowledge. Because it seems easy when I explain it, but if you want to build an agent, even voice agents that now are doing sales calls, there's VAPI, there's Voice Flow, there's 11 Labs. You can build fully functional agents that are on 24/7 and that can do sales calls even. But in that case, let's say I'm a business owner, right? I have no clue about that. How would I write a system prompt to build an agent like that? What nodes would I potentially use? What are the frameworks? Because sales closers, most of the times they have a sheet where they kind of look at everything they need to say. It's the routine. But if I don't have that, I have to make it up, or I have to ask ChatGPT, which will come up with some generic information that generally applies to most cases. But if you are selling something in an industry, it's most likely different from what you sell in another industry. So you would still go to your setter, your closer, and instead of saying, I am fighting you because I have AI, what you want to do is actually teach them and empower them with AI because it's in their best interest. If they can earn the same or slightly less, but completely save most of their time, they can build that agent, have a recurring fee that goes to them, and replicate that agent to other businesses, if, of course, the business owner wants to, if it's not a proprietary thing that they're
Mhm.
requesting. So, yeah, I think closers, setters need to learn how to use AI to build agents for businesses, coaching. Whoever their expertise is, they have to leverage it that way.
Yeah, it's so important. I think most roles learn how AI is going to be involved in what they do day to day. I've heard a lot of people now starting to say that you should start taking inventory of what it is you do every day. What are the tasks that you do, and what are some of the things that can be automated? If you're on the employee side, you could really help your business out by showing, hey, I can automate these tasks. And now I'm learning how to manage and supervise this AI agent or this automation, because just because you plug in the AI doesn't mean that it's going to work 100% of the time. You can still get errors. You can still need to refresh some things, update some things. So there's going to be a lot of human interaction needed. I think that there's a huge misconception when we have these big CEOs coming out and saying AI is coming from everyone and you're going to lose your job more than likely. They usually wait until halfway into the article or their interview to say, unless you train up. And if you train up, then you may be okay. So I do think that there's a big misconception that it's just going to come for everybody, when in reality, it's the people who learn how to use AI in their roles will have greater success as the technology develops.
Yeah, because if you're an employee, what at least that's my guess. My logical thought process, if I'm a business owner, is before I go ask an agency or an external professional to implement AI into my business, I would actually go to my employees and say, in your role, can you use AI? Which is something that is starting to be used as a term in some businesses, the chief AI officer. That's a role that will be growing. You can be at the bottom of the hierarchy of a business, but knows how to use AI better than anyone else in your company. Then you suddenly jump three, four roles up because that doesn't require the business to go outside and spend more resources if you are already in-house. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
And so, what would you say to just business owners in general, employees in general? ChatGPT is obvious one that they should be using, but what are some other automation tools that people should really begin to familiarize themselves with as the technology develops, to get a good foundation as to how it works and to not be intimidated by it? Because there's nothing, I don't think, to really be intimidated by. It's actually quite simple.
Yeah, I agree. I think we already mentioned a few, like the obvious ChatGPT, NA10 if you want to go deeper and build agents, some voice related stuff like 11 Labs. It highly depends on what your expertise is. If I'm doing a very manual, repetitive job that can just have an agent perform like some specific tasks, I maybe don't need Perplexity, which is another great tool that I suggest. It's for researches. But if I'm a business or a coach or a sales assistant that needs new leads, I do need Perplexity in an agent because I have to be up to date with all the information that comes up about that specific niche your coach is in. So I need to be able to research competitors. There's a bit more advanced things like file crawl, browser use that allow you to scrape more detailed information from a website, also multiple pages, and also like behaving as a person. So clicking on buttons on websites to get a more detailed mapping of it, if that's what you need, which might be true maybe for suppliers. If you're looking for the best supplier for your e-commerce brand, you have to potentially look at different Chinese sites if you are outsourcing and getting your supplies from China in bulk. So this opens up a whole new sector of using AI to find who the best supplier is. And once it's found, you can have another agent sustain an initial conversation with them, translating everything automatically. And then once it's time to do a meetup or to do the order, you can get in the loop and actually be the decision maker. Coming back to the tools, Perplexity is definitely one of them. Depending on if you are dealing with creative things, ChatGPT will help you a lot with most images you might possibly need. But I think right now Google got one step ahead of ChatGPT again with VO3 and with Flow in terms of like photorealism, especially, and text accuracy on images. And I expect this is literally a war between AI companies. Every month there's a new number one, and then they become number two or three, and then they become number one again. And this is beautiful. This is like industrialization, the industrial revolution again. We are at the very beginning of it, and it's very exciting to see something like this. So maybe the tools that I mentioned right now will be potentially also outdated in a year from now because there's something bigger. But I have a library with 2,000 tools that I've been curating since 2022 that I use daily. I am planning on productizing it so that you can go to this search bar, ask whatever you want in natural language, and you get a few tools that help you with that. Because some people will never open NA10, will never create their custom solution. Obviously, it's absolutely understandable. So there's already pre-made agents productized into a SaaS that you can use. It depends on what your use case is. But I would say the number one tool to also find under other tools is, I use this a lot, is Grok Deep Research.
Mm.
I like it a lot. Perplexity and obviously ChatGPT Deep Research are the three that I use the most to literally find everything I possibly need.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. If you have no clue what tools to use, you can just talk to ChatGPT or one of these other LLMs, tell it what your business is, say what you want to do, and then it can really guide you into the right direction as to what to use. And you brought up something about Google that I want to touch on with you and get your opinion on because I ended up watching the keynote a couple days ago for their I/O, and I was blown away. I just don't know how ChatGPT is going to compete, but now they just came out announcing that they have acquired IO, which is like a hardware company. Some guy who, John Eving, anyway, he was like a key designer in the iPhone and other big hardwares. That is a good sign that ChatGPT may be able to keep competing with Google. But how do you see this playing out, man? I know it's early stages. The demos could be vaporware and kind of misleading. They may not actually succeed that way. But if they're able to, I don't know how many people are going to be able to compete with Gemini and what Google's doing with AI.
Big businesses, big corporations are starting to understand that if you want to grow after a certain point, which right now ChatGPT literally grew to almost the entirety of the internet. Like you can ask anyone that is using internet, and I'm pretty sure they know what ChatGPT is. If you want to go beyond that point, we have to pull a move like what Apple did with the iPhones. I remember this. I think it was an interview that Steve Jobs did, but essentially the interviewer accidentally asked, we saw iPads, we saw iPods. What if you're building something like an iPhone? So that was the very first time iPhone was actually brought up. It was from this interviewer that accidentally made it up. Then, ironically enough, it became reality, and then that's the main product that Apple sell. And I think the next logical step for AI is to have a physical layer that is instantly available. Some other startups tried a magnetic pin that you can add on clothes or some glasses, a few different interfaces. But I think the most logical thing would be either something that enhances the current usage of AI on the internet, which could be a social network, which it's in the works. Meta already started doing this, but only for people that have Meta Ray-Bans. And it's a social where all pictures, videos are taken on the glasses. And I think OpenAI wants to do the same, creating their own social network to compete with XAI, which is the same as happening for X itself. X acquired XAI. Elon Musk's plan has always been to create a super app. It will be a huge shift in the way social networks are used because the way we interact with content today is through algorithms. Algorithms are a set of predefined instructions. But what happens if you replace an algorithm with an AI that can behave as the first viewer of your post based on your current followers? It understands if that post will be liked or not. And based on that interaction, the post can be pushed more or less. And after a certain amount of views, it has another iteration, checks what happened with the interactions from the previous humans compared to your first scan of it, and then it scans again and it pushes it again. And this way, AI can understand emotion, especially now with vision. It can understand what happens on a frame, not only on the transcript of a video. So it can recognize what's inside of the video, how people can emotionally react to it. And one thing that we're underestimating is that X has data of billions of people, just like Meta, obviously. But on X, there's more news related content, business content, rather than some, let's say, brain rot that is going on a lot on Instagram and TikTok. So X has a huge powerhouse of data to train its AI. So this is what I think AI will be doing in pushing the boundaries of the way we use it on the internet. But the physical layer of it, it's so mysterious right now. It could be a robot. It can be something like the size of a speaker, but it's a tiny robot that becomes an assistant. It could be a bigger robot, like what X AI is doing with Tesla in partnership with
Mm-hmm.
Tesla. And it can be a tiny item like simply AirPods with AI in it. I'm not sure what that device will be. It can be something completely new, like the iPhone was. And now that OpenAI got this guy, this is probably going to become true. Like something entirely new, something that you don't even imagine, or something that already exists, but actually making it better. If I have to take a guess, it will be spatial computing, glasses. That's kind of the next logical thing. But we'll see how that goes.
NVIDIA's CEO was saying that the next big wave in AI is going to be physical AI. It's no longer going to be like the software stuff that we're seeing right now. It's going to be physical. I'm excited to see how that translates into reality. A lot of the new physical products and innovations that have come out haven't really taken off. For like VR goggles or even the AI headsets that Meta has and now Google has. I feel like a lot of those have had a hard time really gaining any traction. They seem like a cool idea, they seem futuristic, but there hasn't been the kind of adoption that you've seen from other things that are more so like internet based, code based, software based. You also touched on something I thought was really interesting. I don't know the technicalities behind it, but as opposed to just your standard algorithm having AI doing a lot of the content feed and figuring out what people want, how do you see that changing for marketing? That will totally change the way people do internet marketing if things are more controlled with AI doing the content feed.
Well, this, if you think about it, the reason why an old technology like emails survived for all these years is because you own your data and the way you communicate with your leads or colleagues is purely based on what you're writing. So it's not subject to revision, limitations, or to some tricks. What most marketers do is growth hacking. So reading the changes that an algorithm has every month and adapting to it. And newsletters and email marketing always worked because it's the environment on which you own the most data from your leads. And so if you're good at writing, copywriting, if you're good at communicating what your offer is, you sell. Almost like the bottom of the funnel before sales. This will become more true of top of the funnel content for marketing. Because on X right now, you get a point system for every tweet you make. It works like this. If you have a link on your post, you get, let's say, minus 3 points. If you have a lot of mentions, you get minus whatever points. If you have an image on your post, you get +1, +2. If you have misspelling of words, you get minus points. All of this comes down to a total number, and that works in or against you. So this won't be the case with an AI powered algorithm because I can insert a lot of links. If if they're valuable, why should I be punished for it? Like, why should I make a thread? Why should I include the links on another post? In my case, I do do a daily recap post on X every day for those
Mhm.
52 days. Sometimes it happens that I mention a lot of people because I have a networking section where I write everyone I network with. I insert their tags if they have an X account, if we connected on X. I noticed even slightly that when I tag a lot of people, the posts get penalized a little bit. But it's completely the opposite of the value I'm offering because now my followers can get to know how I network with those other people and they can follow those people. And if a social network's goal is to incentivize networking, you shouldn't be punished for something like this. I also think AI can understand a lot more based on sentiment, whether an account is a bot or not. It happens a lot right now. I have mixed feelings about this. I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but there's a lot of accounts using AI to do their replies, their comments, their posts, and after a little bit, you start to recognize them. They sound very artificial, and an algorithm doesn't really know this because it's simply like a words on words and that's it. But an AI can understand. Ironically enough, an AI can understand if a text is AI if you train it to do so. So yeah, I think it will be a big shift in the way we use social network. And for marketing, right now there's the word vibe marketing, just like there's vibe coding, which is
Mhm.
using ChatGPT to create ads, creatives, using using HeyGen
Mhm.
or UGC Creator, a few other tools that create humans that aren't real, but they look it so real. They can hold products, they can do reviews for you, is already within the spectrum of vibe marketing. So it's already changing. And if this gets actually implemented into algorithms, it will change even more.
Yeah. I think a lot of businesses are going to be able to create their own kind of mascot. Like that was a big thing back in the day. I'm not sure how common that is where you're at in your part of the world, but over here we have Geico and General Insurance, a bunch of these mascots for businesses. And so with the advent of AI avatars and these AI twins, you're going to be able to basically create your own mascot that can, you don't have to pay necessarily a creator, an influencer to do your marketing for you anymore. And I think that that's going to be really cool to see how that develops over time. There's actually a lot of people right now creating these AI avatars and making good money from them. Now, they may have some questionable morals what they're using it for, but that's another question. It just kind of shows that the model is validated, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. And there has to be inevitably some regulation that comes into place because I'm seeing a lot of ads with celebrities that obviously aren't them, but I understand it. Maybe someone who is in a boomer generation, they don't understand it. They can't tell the difference, and so they fall for scams or even not scams, but some people use it as a marketing tactic that isn't so morally good. We'll see at what point regulation comes in because that's another problem. How can you regulate it? Where do you draw the line? What's the limit? Because it's hard to actually regulate something like this, just like it's been hard over the years to regulate crypto because it's completely open. If I am an agency that owns the image right of a celebrity and I have the consensus of that celebrities, I have the permission to use their image for whatever I want to do. But then if there's been a hard limit applied to all of those tools that can operate with a celebrity, that creates a lot of business problems. Like I want to do that, but I can't now. But at the same time, if you do the opposite, if you leave this as the Wild West, the more the technology advance, the harder it is literally set some limits and understand what is for good, what is for scam purposes. So we'll see how regulation goes. But yeah, it's wild to think about it right now.
It really is. And with regulation being minimal or non existent, there's a huge opportunity for growth for people coming into the space. If you own a business and you start implementing and learning how to use AI to give yourself the upper hand against the competitors before a lot of strict regulation comes in, I'm not a lawyer or anything or a regulator, but I do know from the crypto space that that is a huge reason why so many people were able to make good money because they took advantage of it before a lot of the regulatory agencies came in. And usually they come in after there's already a significant amount of traction. So there's a huge opportunity right now to be like kind of like an early, late adopter, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. And it's still the case for crypto. The reason why people are doing rug pulls on meme coins is because they're not regulated. You
Right.
can create a coin, dump on your buyers, and the thesis is who told them to buy? So then I can do whatever I want with that token. If crypto has been around for almost 20 years, we're in the range of like 15 years now, especially with Ethereum, it's a bit newer, but
Mhm.
that would allow the composability and building a software on top of blockchains. Well, 8 years in. But if it's been 8 years with no regulation on something like this, let alone with AI, which is even more like evolving, self-evolving, improving. It's going to be very hard to regulate.
100%. So, Dom, you're building this out in public, 52 days, your agency. What's your goal? What's the end goal for the company here? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, my number one goal right now, which is also why I spent $1,200 since the start of my journey, and I haven't made money from it directly. There's some things, some coaching that I've been doing externally that is still related to crypto. That's how I've been able to keep some money and literally
Mhm.
use less of my money to go all in into AI. But directly from this journey, still nothing. I've been just investing in content. Most of the expenses are for paying my editor and then paying the tools that I use and the subscriptions. But my goal has always been the community. I've made all my money in crypto through communities and also learned the most through communities. So I wanted to do the same with AI, which is why I created the VibeBuilders. My thesis for that name and for the whole movement is that the more you vibe with AI, vibe coding, vibe marketing, vibe designing, they will be deprecated and just collapsed into a single term. And I took a guess calling it VibeBuilders. The community is growing quite fast, and I learned a lot from it. I learned everything that I know today about vibe coding, the best practices, and also AI automations. I was able to learn from the community. And there's a lot of founders in there that already launched projects, already making money, or others that just joined and are in the process of doing the same. I received a reply to yesterday's recap post on X from a guy that said, "You are my biggest inspiration." And this is worth more than money to me. So if I can make a change in someone's life and then they go and make a big change that I could ever do, that's a win for me. So most of it is literally around this because there's also the possibility that AI will truly take over. We don't know. The best we can do is to keep humanity alive by improving each other, networking and connecting, staying together to make sure that AI evolves our society, evolves humanity rather than destroying it. So if I can contribute a tiny bit on that part, I'm happy to do that. So that's number one. But obviously, I don't do charity. So that's where the business part comes in. I have been pretty happy with the results I got from crypto before for some other circumstances. It all like collapsed. So that's why I'm starting from scratch again. In 2021, I created the first NFT creative studio in the world. And I had no experience with it. So I went from zero to six figures back to zero again. I learned a lot in the journey. So what I want to do now, and what I'm already doing, is applying that knowledge and experience into AI right now. If I have to explain my personal goal, I'm not the type of person who wants to be a millionaire. I lived as a digital nomad for a couple of months before everything on my agency collapsed. Um, and I love that. I love traveling around the world. I want the bare minimum that allows me to explore as many countries as I want. I don't want a five-star hotel experience. I really want to experience life this way because you never know when it's your last moment, or you never know when it will be impossible to travel for whatever reason. Climate change is a big one. You never know when some of those beautiful countries will be completely destroyed by climate issues. Because of that, I really don't care about materialistic things. I don't want a yacht. I don't want a private jet. I just want the bare minimum to be able to live this type of life. But at the same time, I know the opportunity is way bigger than me. What I'm building can become a multi-million or billion-dollar business, especially with an app, with a platform that we're building right now internally to divide builders. It's something very big, and we're in the process of gathering investments for it. So something can grow bigger than I expected, and it won't be a problem. Everything is a challenge, whether it's a challenge in the negative or making so much money, I have to deal with it now. I'm open for everything. So, yeah, this is my goal: empowering businesses, empowering individuals to use AI in their life and integrating AI as much as possible so that people can enjoy life more. The ideal scenario is we have AI perform the most tiring, complex tasks, and we can enjoy life a bit more. Unfortunately, in a lot of countries, there's a lot of slavery yet. So maybe that can be solved through AI, through robots. And it's our duty to try and do this.
Mhm.
I know a lot of Indians, guys from Pakistan's. I met a lot of them, and although it's something that they kind of have to do, the VA market is a very tough market. Those guys work a lot of hours, not in their time zone, completely fuck up their routines to work for remote companies because labor is very cheap there. But if this can get changed, if this can evolve thanks to AI, that's incredible. That's great. I think the whole way the world works will change because of AI, and whether just the forefront of it or in the back end doing some tiny integrations, I'm pretty sure I can get a slice of this pie, however big it is. I don't really care, but if it can make an impact, that's what I'm here for.
Nice. And where could people find you or maybe even join your community if they were interested?
Currently, I am on Instagram, X, TikTok. I also have a LinkedIn, but I am not really using it a lot. I'm planning to use it, start using it a bit more, but I'm currently on those three platforms. Um, and they can DM me. I reply to literally every DM I get, every comment I get on any platform. That's number one. And then in all my socials, I have a link in my bio. I forget to mention YouTube. That's where I'm posting what I do every day. My current brand is I can't make progress unless I'm recording it. So everything I do, high level or low level, is documented on my YouTube. And yeah, there's links in there to join my community, which right now is invite only. It's free, but it's invite only because I want to keep the quality high, and I am rolling out invites to my newsletter members. So the process would be simple. You find me on socials, you can DM me, we can get in touch, or you can join my newsletter. Once you join, you will receive an invite to the community, and then from the community, we'll basically take it from there if you need more help.
Awesome. Dom, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. You've been a wealth of knowledge. I wish you the best in your journey, man. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's been really great talking with you too. Great questions. I've been very entertained. And yeah, can't wait to potentially increase my knowledge so that in the future maybe we can do another episode and I have something new to say.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.